If I can ask for the live stream to be started. Thank you, and welcome to the first meeting of Cabinet. My name is Jonathan Lester. I'm the leader of the Council, and I will be chairing this meeting, the first meeting of Cabinet of the new administration. Before I do, I'm conscious of the fact that this is the first official meeting that is being held since the funeral of our former councillor, Peter Ginman. Peter's funeral was on Saturday. It was attended by hundreds of people. It was a very moving service where lots of great things were said about such an accomplished and dedicated person who dedicated his life to public service. So I just wanted to make the point that our deepest sympathies remain with Peter's family and friends. And it's important we recognise that. So thank you very much. So in commencing the meeting, there are councillors in the room that are present, but we also have councillors that are joining remotely. And just to confirm, we have councillors. Councillor Stark, can you hear everything, Councillor Stark?
Yes, I can hear and see you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fagan?
Yes, good afternoon. I can hear and see you. Thank you. Unfortunately, I am going to have to leave at some point before the meeting's over. Apologies.
Okay, noted. Thank you. And Councillor Chowds?
Hello, yes, I can hear and see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we're joined by the Cabinet. Do we have... and also we are joined by group leaders, Councillor James, Councillor Chowds remotely, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Matthews in the room as well, and we've just confirmed, and Councillor Crockett, who's chair of Scrutiny for Healthcare and Wellbeing. So now formally open the meeting. The agenda papers and other relevant information of the meeting is all available on the public website on Herefordshire Council's website. Yes, the Council is streaming this meeting live on the Herefordshire Council YouTube channel and making a recording. To ensure that the recording quality is maintained, please speak clearly as possible and keep the background noise to a minimum. Microphones should be muted when you are not speaking. Please ensure that mobile phones and other devices are turned to silent. Others are permitted to film, record and photograph the meeting, provided that it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. If any members of the public attending do not wish to be filmed or photographed, please notify a member of staff. As we move through the agenda, in addition to the discussion by Cabinet members, I will invite those members who are either group members or group leaders, or representatives of the group leaders to provide their views and questions from the group, where appropriate also, and the issue and the discussion has been debated by the scrutiny committees. I'll invite scrutiny chairmen or chairpersons to comment on behalf of their committee. So voting can be undertaken by a show of hands. Only Cabinet members physically present may vote, but as they're all here today, that won't be an issue. Before I go on to the formal items on the agenda, I would just like to say a few words about the substantive items on the agenda today. One of them is the feedback from the monitoring report from Ofsted. But first of all, I want to acknowledge the publication earlier this month of the commission that considered the families' experiences of children's services in Herefordshire. Now, the report is a difficult read, and it contains important messages for everyone working in children's services in Herefordshire across a range of agencies and for the council as a whole. And we will be ensuring that those messages are not lost. I want to thank those 20 individuals who met with the panel and who shared their experiences. I'm sure this will not have been easy for them at all, and I want to thank each of them for their participation I also want to thank the panel members for the way they carried out the work for the Commission and thank them for their report. Children's services in Herefordshire are rated as inadequate, and it is a priority of this administration to support and ensure the improvement of services for children, young people and families in Herefordshire. The report itself poses 7 questions for consideration by this Council and by the wider Safeguarding Partnership, and it is important that we take the time to carefully reflect on these 7 questions and make meaningful change without unnecessary delay. I should be asking the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People to provide an update in due course, and both I and Councillor Powell are happy to meet with individual families who shared their experiences with the panel if they wish to meet us. Thank you. Right, so we go on to the formal part of the agenda now, which starts, of course, with apologies for absence. And we have apologies from Councillor Mason. Any other apologies?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So, item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 or other interests for items on the agenda today? No, thank you. So we have item 3, which is minutes of the previous meeting held on 2nd of March. Seems a while ago now. The minutes refer to the last meeting prior to the election, although some current Cabinet members were present for that meeting in their roles. Now, no matters of accuracy have been notified to the monitoring officer. So with that in mind, bearing in mind that I was at that meeting, and Councillor Swinglehurst was at that meeting, are you content, Cabinet, that that meeting can be signed off as an accurate record of that meeting? Show of hands, please. Okay. So next we go on to public participation, very important part of the meeting. So members of the public have the opportunity to submit questions to Cabinet in writing ahead of the meeting. We have received 8 questions for this meeting, and the responses have been published as a supplement to the agenda papers. Those who have submitted questions have been given the opportunity to submit a written supplementary or attend the meeting and ask their supplementary question live. Supplementary questions can be no more than 1 minute in length and must include a question. I may exercise my discretion, but I would ask the questioner to stop speaking if they go beyond that time, but let's move on to that item. So the first question is from Miss Reid. So that is noted. Do we have a supplementary question to read out?
Yes, we do, Chair. I will just set that on the screen now. So the question is from Miss Reid in Hereford to the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. The question reads as follows. The average weekly cost for each child from the 12th of the 1st, 2023 were fostering £315, fostering agencies £890, and children's homes £5,066. The response does not really address deadlines, dates. Unaddressed as it is that the rate of children's, sorry, bear with me, the screen. Unaddressed is that the rate of children in care is about twice that of similar areas. The rate and cost, £28.7 million in 2023 to 24, of looked after children in Herefordshire were mentioned in the Children's Commissioner's report of the 1st of March 2023. Other councils care for unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. The rate of care proceedings was about twice that of statistical neighbours. Ways of reducing looked after children, including family group conferences, was virtually none in Herefordshire, and reunification of children with their families was not mentioned in the improvement plan. By when and how will these be expedited?
Thank you for that, John.
Just one small part. Research by Quorum using a randomised control trial found that family group conferences reduced the number of children in care and cut costs, and that's from a source called Community Care, 13th of June 2023.
Thank you, John. Councillor Bell?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the supplementary question. So, as indicated in my original initial response, it would not be appropriate to apply targets or deadlines to a matter that is so personal to individual families, children, and their own circumstances. The current rate per 10,000 of children in our care is 113. That total figure also now includes almost 40 unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, which inflates both the figure and the rate considerably, but of course is an important part of our work. The rate at which children now come into our care has been below the statistical Labour and England averages for the past 3 months as a result of improved practice and management oversight. And so the Director and his team are confident of seeing a reduction in the overall numbers in the year ahead. You correctly repeat the average cost of placement, so there is nothing more to add there. Family group conferencing is a part of the improvement plan. It was added in December following the meeting of the Children's Scrutiny Committee. Reunification of children with their families where this is safe and appropriate to do so is implicit within the development of the Edge of Care services, also contained in the improvement plan, and there has been some increase in the capacity of the Edge of Care service. Progress against the improvement plan is monitored by the Improvement Board, the Children's Scrutiny Committee, and by Ofsted as the inspectorate.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. We have another supplementary question, and that's from Maggie Steele.
It is sad to see that you are not ready to meet the families as a group. The families are offering you the opportunity to hear the common threads in their stories, past and present. These common threads point to systematic risks and demonstrate that the culture change demanded by councils in April 2021 has not yet materialised. Culture change could start with treating the families with lived experience as an asset, not a threat, and with listening openly to them as a group. A meeting would also be an opportunity for someone from the council to respond in person to the families who went to the commission. Apologies written for journalists are upsetting, and in many cases do not even reach the families. Will a cabinet member reconsider the decision not to meet with the families as a group?
Councillor Bell.
Thank you for the supplementary question. We have had, the leader and I both have had some initial communication by email with Maggie Steele. Maggie Steele was not involved in the original Families Commission report, so given how traumatic it could be for families to have to retell their story again, having been brave enough to tell that story to the Commission, is something that I want to be really, really careful about.
Can I just push it back on that, Ivan? That
there was
a press release.
We can't, no.
There was a press release from the families that was shared with you by Maggie Steele. So she speaks for all of us as families. So please don't play that card. It doesn't wash.
Okay, thank you very much for that contribution, but can we please allow Councillor Powell to answer the question?
So separately to our direct communication with Maggie Steele, I've had, as the member of the public there has said, I've had the report come to me from 2 different sources. And I've had a third communication from another family member. In none of those communications to me has there been a direct request to the families. However, we have, both the leader and I have made it clear to Maggie Steele that we would want to meet her to initially to discuss what her role is with those families. I personally would rather meet with the families individually because they are such personal issues. It may be that not everybody is comfortable resharing their experience as a group. Having worked through those initial conversations, if the family groups and the family's message is absolutely clear that they want to meet as a group, then it's not a decision that I've made not to. I want to make an informed decision about whether meeting with the group of families collectively is the right thing for all of the families. So in answering the very last point in that question, I have not made a decision not to meet with the group of families. I want to make an informed decision based on the conversations which we are currently having before I make that decision. To be clear, if the families want that meeting collectively, then I'm absolutely happy to have that meeting collectively.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Powell. Right, and we have one more supplementary question from Gemma Davis.
No, we don't. I'm Hannah Curry and I'm here.
No, sorry, I've got no supplementary question registered. Would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, I don't have some sit in advance, is my understanding by the Constitution. I can come here today if I wish to submit a supplementary question.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Can you come to the microphone, please? Thank you.
Is that all working? Yeah. Oh. So, given the answer to an unasked question has been published in the space for a response to an asked question, I am loath to repeat it, albeit with slightly different wording. Alongside the work to try and improve children's services, what actions are you doing to help the families who have suffered abuses of power highlighted in the recent Families Commission, where decisions based on abuses included life-changing for children, birth parents and birth families, irreversible and unjust decisions such as adoption?
Thank you for that supplementary question. Councillor Powell.
Given the previous position, and it's been acknowledged that I've not yet met with the families, working out the best way in which to meet the families, whether singly or collectively, will give me the opportunity to understand in detail the particular needs of those families. And at this moment in time, I'm a little hamstrung to be able to give a full response to that, because I don't understand fully the ask of those families and the need of those families.
It's quite simple. We're looking for accountability. We're looking for accountability. We're looking for you to actually say, in the words that everyone else has said to you, that your staff employed by Herefordshire Council abused powers, misled other professionals, misled courts and caused unjust removal of children stolen from Herefordshire. And we can't possibly ask a judge to undo that.
Okay.
Because that's not in our power. But we will make sure that whatever counselling, whatever support you need for the rest of your life and your children and your extended family will have access to that. And we are going to ring fence a pot of money for you as victims of our failures.
Okay. Thank you very much for that contribution. Duly noted. Okay. So thank you for correcting the fact that there was a supplementary, and the next one is Gemma Davis. And did you say, yeah, Gemma Davis, yeah.
So I'm sorry, you don't appear to have answered my question. I've asked what current and expected costs of delaying the library works due to this review. During many cabinet meetings, all group leaders stressed the importance of proceeding with building plans on time due to the continued increase in costs of labour and materials. The breakdown that you have provided shows that 556,000 approximately has been spent to date on the planning, legal works, survey works and staffing, all of which are not transferable. What's more, a large proportion of that money has been drawn down from the Stronger Towns funding already allocated to the site-specific project. But the information that you have provided and the apparent lack of due consideration of the cost of delaying the project, would you agree that this is purely a political decision and puts the budget timescales and entire Hereford City Strong Town funds at risk, and shows contempt and disregard for those who have been part of the process all along, including 4 members of your cabinet who voted through the decision to go ahead with this project in this location in July 2022?
Councillor Bramer?
Yes, no, I would not agree at all with the premise that you proposed at the end of the supplementary question. We are purely pausing the review of where the Library and Learning Resource Centre may go to find the best place for it under the current conditions. Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is to receive any supplementary questions from councillors. Just to confirm, we've received none?
No questions from councillors.
Okay, no supplementaries, no, right. Okay, so then we go on to the first item on the agenda for consideration in terms of the main reports, which is a report from the Scrutiny Committee. We have a report from the Environment and Sustainability Scrutiny Committee, which is at page 29 of the agenda pack. Councillor Stark is the chairperson in here, who is here via Teams to introduce the recommendations from the committee.
Thank you, Leader. My Scrutiny Committee looked at the Council's waste and recycling service in January of this year. While overall we felt progress on the Council services was good, there were a number of areas, Leader, where we felt further enhancements would be beneficial. Consequently, Leader, I would like to put forward today 8 recommendations for your consideration, and I look forward to getting the response from the Executive in due course. I understand, Leader, this is not a time for debate, but simply to put the recommendations on the table, and I have done so. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stark, for the recommendations. A lot of hard work has gone into these recommendations, I know. And do we have any comments from Cabinet members concerning the recommendations? Because it would be, obviously, we're going to consider these recommendations and give a formal response to them. So, Councillor Swinglehurst, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Leader. So first of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Stark and the Environment and Sustainability Scrutiny Committee for the recommendations regarding the waste and recycling review. And I'd also like to thank the Task and Finish group that preceded that, which did a lot of work on this. Is my microphone working? Let's try that.
Yep.
I particularly welcome the emphasis on circular economy and the proper application of the waste hierarchy of reduce, reuse, recycle. And in my mother's day, this was known as waste not, want not. And I'm a great advocate for that. Having served on the 2020 Task and Finish, which provided a review with 23 recommendations via the General Scrutiny Committee, and also serving on the Environment and Sustainability Scrutiny Committee under Councillor Stark's very able chairing, it's hardly surprising I'm inclined to congratulate myself on the work of these committees. However, it's also now my task to consider this excellent work and to see how we can take forward those ideas. I'm therefore going to propose the recommendations as per the agenda, that the report be noted and an executive response provided within 2 months. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Do I have any other comments from Cabinet members? So the recommendation is that we note the content of the recommendations so that we can give a response to be made in due course by the Cabinet. So we're all happy with that recommendation to accept that we consider these recommendations. Can I have a show of hands? Yeah. And as I say, I'd like to echo the thanks about all the hard work that the Scrutiny Committee and its members have done in the past to put those recommendations forward. Thank you. So next item on the agenda is the agenda item 7, which is the Ofsted monitoring visit feedback. So this item is to share the feedback from Ofsted, the inspection that happened on the 29th and 30th of March this year, and the activity to prepare for future monitoring visits. And this is on page 37 of the agenda pack. This is in response to a letter that was written to us by Ofsted, which goes into detail about their assessment so far as to how things stand as of March this year. And there are some very poignant points in there, some improvements that are noted, but also some highlighting about how far we've got to go with certain improvements. So it's an extremely important document to assess how things are going. And I'll just hand over to Councillor Powell now.
Thank you. Before introducing this paper, I want to add to the leader's comments about the recently published report from the Commission to consider the experience of families, their experience of children's services in Herefordshire. The report was an upsetting read, and I want to thank again those families who met the panel and for sharing those experiences. That cannot be an easy thing to do. As a new Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, I shall be providing political leadership and using my influence in children's services and indeed the wider partnerships to bring about change, which has already begun and which is reflected in the Ofsted letter before us today. The service and the safeguarding partnership have begun to reflect on and consider the 7 questions which have been hopefully posed by the report authors of the Families Commission report. I've already started also to have conversations with the Director and his team and with some of our safeguarding partners in health and the police about the report, and I shall be obviously providing an update back to Cabinet on this activity in due course. As we know, children's services in Herefordshire are inadequate, and inadequate authorities are subject to regular monitoring by the Inspector at Ofsted. The first visit to Herefordshire was in March, and the focus was on, in inverted commas, the front door, which is our multi-agency safeguarding hub, locally MASH for short, and the teams around it, including the assessment teams. Last summer, during our inspection, there were significant concerns about the front door and the multi-agency response to risk. And it is very encouraging that 8 months on, inspectors noted that the functioning of the MASH has significantly improved and that effective systems have been established. And just to support that, on Tuesday morning of this week, I spent 2 hours in the MASH with staff and took the time to have a detailed conversation with one of the managers there to understand the degree to which there is management grip and oversight of matters coming to the front door, the detail of those matters, the timeliness of the responses, and the degree to which risk is reviewed and assessed. Multi-agency strategy meetings are held promptly, and again, when Ofsted visited last year, there were significant concerns raised during that previous inspection. The feedback about poor quality of many assessments is disappointing, of course, but was not surprising to us because we are in this particular stage of our improvement activity, and it remains the focus of much attention. Inspectors did find examples of better and improved practice, which was not the case last summer, and were complimentary about the quality of the case audits and the performance information. Importantly, no significant safeguarding concerns were raised by the inspectors during their 2-day visit. To tackle some of the quality issues raised in the report, a team improvement programme is already in place, which is focused on the assessment teams. Work with our improvement partner starts this month, will be focused on the quality of practice as well as culture and values in the service. Inspectors praise the leadership of the service for their determination and commitment to improve services, noting that they understand the scale of change based on a realistic self-assessment. They wrote 2 of feedback from staff, and the staff that they spoke to were positive about the changes being implemented and about them being involved in that change process. Recruitment remains a significant challenge for the service, and we currently remain reliant on agency workers in many teams. Workforce churn is highlighted as an ongoing issue, which of course directly affects children and their families, and also slows down our ability to improve at pace. We have some excellent agency workers, and we also have some excellent permanent workers, all of whom are working very hard to deliver improved services, but we know that we have to work even harder to recruit permanent team members moving forward. I do want to thank those staff for their hard work and also for the recognition that this letter provides that we are starting to see some evidence of improvement. And as I've said, having visited the MASH earlier this week, and also as a part of that, spoken to social workers, and the leader and I spoke to some newly qualified social workers last week, I've personally seen from myself that their commitment and their passion to keep improving and their core values. My Cabinet colleagues are invited to note the feedback letter, which for a first monitoring visit is not published by Ofsted, but is being shared here as part of the open and honest approach adopted by the service leadership.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Right, we have a question from Councillor Gandy.
Thank you. The comments that regarding the assessments both within the report and the Ofsted letter are worrying, and I'm sure my colleagues will and have commented about this part of the report. But I think, however, that it is important to give credit where credit is due, and there has been a real effort in some parts of the Directorate to improve, in particular MASH, and the staff involved should be congratulated for that, alongside with the out-of-hours team. I'm also pleased to see that the majority of children and families, once they are allocated to early help workers, are dealt with well. But I would like to know roughly how long the waiting list is for early assessment.
Thank you, Councillor. So currently there are 32 families waiting on the list for targeted support, so that is approximately 70 children. The maximum wait for targeted support or children's centre support has been 5 weeks. The service, as we've said, it is currently short-staffed, and we are working hard to create that extra capacity. And in addition to that, some of our family support workers are on placement training to be social workers, so that in itself is a positive development that our staff are looking to take a step up the ladder, as it were. But of course, that in itself has a knock-on impact downstream in our capacity for early help.
I've got another question.
Yes, please come back, Councillor Gandy.
Again, in the report, there's comments been made with regard to the edge of care, and it brings me back to the Signs of Safety project, which we considered as a council some 12, 18 months ago, where we all had a workshop on what was being done in that field. Many of us thought that this process would work well, would ensure that parents would not only be advised when we felt that there was room for improvement, but that they would also be told about the good things that they were doing in their parenting, so that not everything that was given on the visit were negative points. And I just wonder where we are with Signs of Safety. Is it still progressing? Because I don't actually hear a lot about it now.
Thank you, Councillor. So yes, Signs of Safety is still a tool that is available to staff to use, particularly in the child protection work that we do with some families. Other tools and practice framework include the graded care profile, which is used where childhood neglect is identified, and family group conferencing. I referenced earlier our journey with our safeguarding partner, and I met with one of the senior leaders from that programme yesterday. We need to get to a place, we've spoken, we acknowledge that we need to improve the quality of our social work practice, as well as alongside that culture. So any tool, any framework is only as good as the staff who are using it. So there is a real, both a need and an opportunity working with our safeguarding partner to make sure that we have relationship-based discussions in the way that you described when using any tool, including signs of safety. So that very much is part of the ongoing improvement practice that we do need to develop. But the tools themselves remain valid as a framework for a relationship-based conversation with a family and indeed a child, if age appropriate.
Okay. And my final question is, reading the report in total and the letter from Ofsted, do we believe that as an authority we have the capacity to make the changes that are needed going forward?
Thank you again for the question. You'll appreciate that it's difficult to put an actual timescale on it, but it's estimated that the work required is likely to take a period of time, thought to be up to 3 years. That doesn't make we're not on that improvement journey now. So the service is embarked on a significant and ambitious programme of change over the coming years, and yes, capacity will be stretched at times. There is a whole council approach to supporting improvement, and when the service has required additional capacity, the request across the council has been responded to positively. Improving children's services remains the council's #1 priority, and all of the cabinet is committed to this, and I personally am very committed to it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gandy, and thank you, Councillor Powell. Any more questions from cabinet members? Yes, Councillor Swinglehurst.
Thank you. As with Councillor Gandy, I'm very pleased to note the improvement in MASH and the early help, and particularly that no case of safeguarding concerns was found. That's really, really good to note. And I think it's important to acknowledge where progress improvement is being made, because this is a very difficult area of council work, and there's a lot of effort going in there. So I'm duly aware of that. However, improvement is a journey, not a destination. There's work to be done. So I'm picking up on the issues around workforce churn and pace of change, bearing in mind sort of Shakespeare's strictures about go wisely and slowly, those who rush stumble and fall. What is the right pace of change? And are we looking to accelerate that pace of change? And what are the obstacles to that? Thank you.
So, similarly, the service is embarked on it's wide-ranging and comprehensive improvement, and of course, therefore, sadly, not every single thing can be progressed at the pace that we would like, and so some of the activity has to be sequenced. We make changes to systems and processes that in turn allow for other things to be made. So, for example, one of the issues that was previously identified was the performance information available against which to judge the performance of the department was challenging. That required a change in the case management system that children's services use. So obviously those technical IT changes were the enabler to enable the performance information to come through, and that performance, or the improvement in the performance information and the availability of it has been noted in the Ofsted report. So an example there of how some things need to enable, and therefore there is some time to the journey. It is very definitely gaining momentum. When I'm talking to, for example, the MASH, I was talking to them about the pace at which they've delivered their change and the size of the journey that they felt they'd still got to go on. And I would welcome other colleagues having those kinds of conversations. We are encouraged that the report recognises that some improvement is evident. And this was also reflected in a recent conversation that I and the leader were part of with the department, and we will continue to work hard to deliver on all elements of the improvement plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more cabinet members? The matter has not been discussed by the Children's Scrutiny Committee, but Councillor Fagan was at the Improvement Board. I don't know, Councillor Fagan, if you want to make any comment. Chairman's discretion.
Thank you, Chairman, and as you rightly say, this hasn't been discussed at a scrutiny committee yet, but it certainly will be, because the improvement plan is part of the focus, will be one of the main elements of the focus of the scrutiny committee. So it's a very interesting report to read, and as everybody's acknowledged, there have been improvements, which is fabulous, but there are still sort of areas of concern noted within that. It will be interesting to see when the officers return in June to have a look, Ofsted return to have a look, sort of what they flag up. But you know, variations within the assessment that children get. I mean, we're talking about the most vulnerable children in Herefordshire, and that's, you know, a key thing that we're going to have to focus on, making sure that actually those children get the best out of that assessment process is really, really important, and absolutely key to how they progress. So yeah, there will be obviously a lot more scrutiny on that. And also just one question I had was about the future risk mitigation. So that seems to be looking at the police partners, and an area that could actually be developed quite quickly. And I wonder if there has actually been any progress on that since the visit from Ofsted, or if that is still in progress, but looks like something that we could actually mitigate pretty quickly.
Thank you for that contribution and for that question. Councillor Power?
Thank you, thanks for the question. So the MASH-related actions have been picked up by the partnership and will be reported back to the Herefordshire Children's Safeguarding Partnership. So that specific piece of work is already in action as we speak.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Right, and now group leaders. Do any group leaders wish to speak? Councillor James.
Thank you, Leader. Just a note, the most encouraging part of the recent problems that the Children's Service, well, it's not recent, it's gone on for many, many years, is the acceptance of the experience of families. And at last, we've had an indication of that in the report in the meeting of 20 families. But it doesn't stop at 20 families. There are many other families that have had similar experiences. And you can have the best committees and processes and improvement boards, unless you've got the right people at the coalface, actually having empathy, having concern about the family as a whole, rather than just centering on the process and procedures whereby, and it's indicated by the fact that we've had it wrong for many, many years, the number of children that have been taken into care. I already know of one case at the moment whereby the children's services are threatening to take children into care, unnecessarily so, at enormous cost to the council. It's a double whammy. It's going to cost us hundreds of thousands a year to do it, and it's going to destroy a family, and a pretty well functional family. So the sooner we realise that we can have all the improvement boards, all the MASHs and etc., unless we have the right people and they are managed at the bottom, at the social worker level, who have empathy and compassion and understand how families work. Not all families are perfect, but many families operate, although they're not perfect, perfectly adequately. And children have a happy and fulfilling life. And the sooner we know that, and that would happen, the better we shall all be as a county and as a community. And I'm encouraged by the fact that we've met those 20 families, many of whom I know and have dealt with over recent years. But there are others out there who feel, well, not quite frightened, but intimidated by the process of actually meeting social workers because of the experience they've had over many, many years in dealing with Herefordshire Children's Services. So forget about the senior management, get it right at the bottom, because that's ultimately where it's all gone wrong. Thank you.
Thank you very much for thank you very much for those comments, Councillor James. Councillor Chowns.
Thanks very much. I really welcome publication of this Ofsted letter and the transparency on that. As you've noted, it's not published by Ofsted. That was a decision taken also by the previous administration. I'm glad that you've continued with that. And I think it's very encouraging to see such positive feedback from Ofsted on, you know, 2 of the 3 areas that they looked at. Very encouraging, and I'm glad to see that action is already being taken to address the ongoing challenges in the 3rd area of assessment, where progress is still clearly nearly not as good as we would like. It's very clear to see that there is determination among staff to turn this service around. I know that that extends from the top to the bottom, and I'm really, you know, very, very appreciative of the immense amount of work that's being done by members of staff at every level in the council to turn the service around. It's a really, you know, a difficult and ongoing piece of work, and I think it's really pleasing to see in the report that they specifically state, the Ofsted letter, that, you know, staff like working in Herefordshire, they say that. And that's really good to hear, and staff are positive about the changes implemented by senior managers, and good to see Ofsted's recognition of the consultation that's been done with staff on these changes. I think all of this goes to show that there is a really strong sense of team across all of the levels in the council to tackle the transformation, and a determination to up the pace on that, as we all know needs to happen. I want to ask a very specific question to Councillor Powell, though, on one aspect of this. So, Councillor Powell, in the Ofsted letter, the theme of needing to listen more to children is mentioned a number of times. That was also a theme that was picked up, specified in the Ofsted inspection last year. It isn't a theme that's picked up in your sort of covering report today, and I haven't heard it talked about so far today. I think it's really, really important that we listen more to children. It's quite easy for children's voices to be drowned out, and I think it's significant that Ofsted keep reminding us we need to listen more to children. So I'd like you, if you could, please, to explain specifically what is being done to ensure that the voice of children themselves is listened to more. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor, for your question. Yeah, so and thanks for pulling me up, because we're completely remiss of me not to you know, make the point that you just made, and that is that the voice of children and families is really, really important. And of course, that on occasion we need to acknowledge, when we're working in the child protection system, that not all children are able to communicate for themselves. So we also need to think that through. As the report says, there are some signs of better practice from those workers who have completed the training that is currently being rolled out. But the fact that, of course, it is currently being rolled out means that there is still some of the workforce who have yet to benefit from that training. Our audit activity is specifically telling us that there is more evidence of direct work with children and young people, and that we are starting to hear their voice more. But of course, your point is right, we absolutely need to do that continually and consistently to make sure it is absolutely embedded in all that we do.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor Jones, and thank you, Councillor Powell. Are there any more questions from group leaders? Okay. Councillor Harvey and then Councillor Matthews.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Thank you. The Independents for Herefordshire welcome the improvements found in the services and support that families first encounter when engaging with children's services. and congratulate staff at all levels and within our partner organisations for the coordinated effort that these improvements represent. However, the continued weaknesses in the council's assessment function and its impact on the support and security of children during the assessment process is concerning, because it speaks to the quality of social work practice and the ongoing failure in the management chain to conduct appropriate oversight and supervision. The noted lack of professional curiosity and failure to seek evidence to back up verbal assurances is pretty basic stuff, and the premature and inappropriate closure of cases and the resultant bounce back of referrals should be a red flag to managers that we're not getting this right, and the result is children remaining at risk and their voices unheard in the process. We note the determination and commitment to improved services voiced by the Chief Executive and Director, but are frustrated by the failure of this to translate into a pace of change commensurate with the urgency of the situation. Whilst the number of agency staff remains high and there is a high level of churn in appointed caseworkers, it is imperative that the maintenance and upkeep of written records is gripped, irrespective of the gripes which continue regarding the software being used. Improving the record keeping system may also be important, but the current system must continue to be used until a better one is set up and available. Complete, accurate and up-to-date records are key to minimising the impact of the presently unavoidable turbulence in the staff base, and will also reduce the irritation and stress placed on families who find themselves needing to repeatedly provide basic information to new caseworkers. Accurate and consistent record keeping also reduces the risk of the service and our partners placing children at risk of harm by making poor decisions based on out-of-date and inadequate data. The improvements recognised are welcomed indeed, but when are we going to grip the shortcomings in management oversight and supervision, which have always been wholly within our control to improve?
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Some questions there. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Councillor. Since the visit from Ofsted, we've introduced more management and also targeted some of our practice development resources. We have and continue to make positive changes to our records system. We've built in more quality assurance processes on record keeping. And one particular item that the councillor mentioned was professional curiosity. In some of my other work, professional curiosity, as well as a range of other supporting policies and procedures, are available. I'm having conversations with Herefordshire Children's Safeguarding Partnership to make sure that not only children's services, but all safeguarding partners avail themselves of those range of policies which are currently available.
Thank you. Last but by no means least, Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Lady. You got that right, anyway. Only very briefly, Darryl knows I've been one of his strongest critics. It's nice to see a bit of good news, Darryl, that they've noted improvement in leadership. I still think, and I'm going to ask the Cabinet member, does he agree that the three most important issues are still there: supervision, management, and the it says about the approach to children at an early stage by social workers. We've read of some aggressiveness in the past. We don't want to go there, but I think it's so important that a more warm and soothing approach is taken at that early stage, because unless workers get the confidence of those children, those parents at that early stage, they're fighting the matter right down. So, Cabinet Member, Councillor Powell, I'd like to ask you, do you agree with me that the three most important issues are still there? Proper supervision and management. We've increased the managers, so that's showing some improvement. I'm pleased and warmly welcome that. but there's something that still has to be closely monitored because we were in a pretty low state before. So do you agree that those are the three important things, approaching the problem families at an early stage and approaching them in a sympathetic and warm approach? Because if you don't get the right start to any issue, you're struggling all the way. And that report which Councillor James was involved with showed that quite clearly. The aggressiveness got us nowhere. So do you agree that those 3 points are still there to be worked on, and will you make sure that they are pursued? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So in short, yes, I do agree. Relationship-based practice, restorative approaches are very much things that we are talking about, and one of the particular reasons that the safeguarding, the improvement partner have been chosen is because they're recognised for their particular skills in that. One of the overarching principles of the Children Act is that where possible, children should stay in the family environment, and it's really, really important that that's our starting point. Of course, when safe to do so. It's really, really important that we reinforce that all the time, because that should be our starting point for working with children and families. And the starting point then becomes relationship-based, becomes a positive relationship.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, if there are no more comments from group leaders or cabinet members, the recommendation is to accept the report. Are cabinet members content to accept the report? Okay, thank you. And we know now, well, thank you everyone for their contributions on an issue that is absolutely critical to this council. As Councillor Powell said, it's our #1 priority to improve children's services and continue that improvement that's currently underway. So next item is agenda item 8, the review of the Hereford Library and Learning Resource Centre location. So this item is to review the options for the best possible location of the proposed new Hereford Library and Learning Resource Centre, and the report is in the supplement #1. And I'll go over to Councillor Bramer, the Cabinet Member for Community Services and Assets. Thank you, Councillor Bramer.
Thank you, Leader. I will start by reminding the Cabinet members and members of the public here and elsewhere that this is a pause and review to find the best possible solution for the library service, to find the best possible place for the library to be allocated. There is a perception that the Conservatives are a party of limited ambition for our library services. Nothing could be further from the truth. We want the provision of library services and the learning centre to be a very special facility within the city. Let's not forget that the library is being temporarily displaced as a result of Herefordshire gaining a new and world-class museum. This review allows us to explore whether we can set out the same ambition for our library and learning services resource centre. We want this to be a very special part of our city, where people don't just come to a library, but they enjoy a great visitor experience too. The demand for retail commercial space at Maydell's Orchard has happily remained relatively high and is still a viable entity. To set this in context of the original relocation of our cultural partners, such as the Rural Media Digital Culture Hub, Powerhouse and Encore, none of whom are now seeking to relocate. In the essence, the ambition of a cultural service hub is regrettably some way off. Under the current arrangements, the library is due to relocate to Friar Street in July, and this will proceed as planned while the review is undertaken. During such time, the opening hours will be similar to those already at the current location, and there will be a redistribution of some of the library services to other parts of the county, notably Ledbury and Ross-on-Wye. This will be a benefit to some of our more remote parts of the county. And the faithful library bus will be updated and renovated and will be put into use during the time the library is at Fire Street. I would recommend that this pause and review should be undertaken at the earliest possible opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brainerd. Do we have any questions from Cabinet members? No? Okay. All content to go with the recommendation. So this matter has not been discussed at scrutiny, but I'll just check to see if. Sorry, Councillor Swindle has.
No, I do have a question. I think I know the answer to the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, which is, I was watching the political group's consultation meeting, which is available, and there was a lot of kind of very good points were raised, so we just want to make sure that that will be captured within the review. If I could just have that reassurance. Thank you.
I'm not sure what the particular points that were raised are, therefore I find it hard to respond to your query, but I'm sure that the review will be thorough and it will enable us to make the best use of the resources that we have to our disposal.
Thank you. And go on to group leaders. Any group leaders wish to speak? Yeah, okay. Councillor Matthews and then Councillor Chowns.
Yes, I'd like Councillor Brainerd to assure us that whatever takes place will not interfere with the enlarging and modernisation of the museum. I think it's absolutely essential that we get that building enlarged. We've got so much historic issues there that visitors would welcome. So can he assure us that it won't have a detrimental effect on the improvements to the museum?
Thank you, Councillor. I would be delighted to give you my assurance that this will not take any weight away from the museum. I look forward with great interest over the coming months to see the museum taking place at Broad Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chowns.
Thank you. I'm frankly astonished at the level of irresponsibility represented by this report. So, you know, let's recognise this is the first substantive decision of this administration. And what is it? It's to take on potentially up to £1.3 million of financial in order to do a review of a project that has been 3 years in preparation, which is literally about to start construction, which is a key part of plans for regeneration of that part of our city, which has been very widely consulted on, and for which there is absolutely zero rationale for a decision to pause. This is absolutely clear from the decision document itself, which has an incredibly weak paragraph 7, which is the only bit that purports to provide some sort of justification. And this decision also, frankly, jeopardises the full £3 million of funding from the Stronger Towns Fund for the regeneration of the library. This is not a library that's being displaced by the museum project, and therefore it's an opportunity to rethink it. The museum project and the library project have been developed alongside each other as projects to regenerate two key buildings, exactly the same level of consultation, detailed work and so forth. And it's, in my view, absolute madness to do a review. So let's just take a moment to remind ourselves. The plan for the Maylords Library is part of a comprehensive plan to regenerate that part of our town centre, driving new footfall, creating mixed-use space. We all know that our high streets need to be regenerated, and linking up indeed with the new DWP Opportunities Hub in the same building. And full council approved the plans for this, and previous cabinet members, as highlighted in the question from my former colleague Councillor Davies, previous cabinet members, some of whom are still around the table today, have had plenty of opportunities to make suggestions, feed in, indeed raise concerns, and they didn't. So it's frankly bizarre that this is now coming through. So you're proposing to chuck out 3 years of preparation, including loads and loads of consultation with the public, with councillors, there were visits looking at the inside of the... For what? So there's a total lack of justification, absolutely wafer thin so-called justification in that paragraph 7, absolutely no real rationale for doing this. And yet the level of financial risk that is entailed in simply doing the review, which we were assured in the political group consultation might result in a decision to keep it in the same place, Obviously not, otherwise why would you do it? But the level of financial risk is such that you really ought to have a very strong rationale for even undertaking that review, considering the amount of work and review that has already gone into the development process. There is no justification. It's a major act of financial irresponsibility. The papers show pausing will cost nearly £700,000 plus possibly a further £600,000+ because of the risks relating to the contracts that the contractors have already entered into. Again, unbelievably irresponsible decision. The report itself is entirely inadequate. It lacks crucial information. For example, it doesn't even mention that the time frame for implementing the Stronger Towns project is by March 2025. So that's £3 million for the library. That's from the Stronger Towns project. It's part of this 15 project major set of programs, and there's a tight time frame for using that money. If there's a pause and review after 3 years of project development, there's a real risk, a real jeopardizing of that funding, which is crucial for regeneration of this centrally important public service. We've been assured there'll be an opportunity to feed into the review when it's happening, but the review itself carries a massive risk, as highlighted in recommendation C in the report before you. And last but not least, there has been an entirely inadequate consultation process. The political group consultation with members of the council was called lunchtime Monday for lunchtime Tuesday with less than 24 hours notice for members. I've never come across such a short notice consultation. It's clearly, dismissive of input from members. Only 3 Conservative members attended, and Councillor Bramer, the cabinet member responsible, did not even do us the courtesy of attending, nor did the leader. And to be honest, Councillor Bramer responding to Councillor Swinglehurst just now, saying that he's not sure what the comments were, strongly indicates that he hasn't even bothered to listen to and watch the video in order to understand what members think. And it makes a mockery of the process of consultation, and this is how the input of members is treated. What's going to be the input of members of the public? This is clearly a political decision, and this is only reinforced by the article by Bill Wiggin in today's Hereford Times, which it says some sort of ridiculous thing about dismissing the plans for the new library as a vanity project. I'm really glad to hear Councillor Bramer kind of emphasise the fact that he thinks that public libraries are very important public services. Indeed, they absolutely are for all members of our community. And, to dismiss the Maylords plan as a vanity project shows that actually Bill Wiggin and quite possibly other people involved in this decision have paid, frankly, no attention to the process of developing this new regeneration project, and frankly, how little they care. I think it's really disappointing that Conservatives are trying to score points by playing politics with crucial public services in this way, with zero consultation, with no clarity on what even the framework, the scope for the review is, what the justification for taking on such a major financial risk is. And, frankly, if this is the shape of things to come in terms of this Conservative cabinet, then I'm really worried.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Jones. Councillor Bramer?
Yes, thank you, Councillor, for your opinion. I didn't detect a question, so I can't give you an answer.
I'll ask you a question, Councillor Bramer. Have you watched the video of the comments from members in the political group consultation?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Did you watch? Councillor Bramer,
did you watch the political group consultation
consultation
video, since you were apparently unable to attend it?
It's on my list for the weekend.
Have you read all of the project development documents for the Maylords project?
They're all on the table right in front of me.
Have you read them?
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Thank you, Councillor.
Have you read them, Councillor Bramer?
Okay. Thank you,
It
Councillor
seems
Jones. Right. Can we go to other group leaders now, please? Who wish to speak? Councillor Harvey.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Independence for Herefordshire Group recognise that this decision is about whether or not to pause and review this project, rather than the detail of what such a review might comprise. However, this is not a decision to be taken lightly. In order to take a sound decision, it's necessary that Cabinet has all the information required to understand the cost and the risk, the reputational, the reputational damage and any other consequences of making that pause. And that is just simply not the case here today. We've just heard from the cabinet he hasn't bothered to look at the concerns that have been raised by fellow members. He has a pile of papers in front of him, but is reluctant to say whether or not he's managed to wade his way through them, and yet he's going to be making a decision on this along with other cabinet members here today. If he hasn't done it, what chance is there that every other member of the cabinet has made themselves similarly familiar with the detail? I think that chance is slight. The reasons as cited for undertaking this review are spurious. Full account has already been taken of changes to the location of other Stronger Towns projects and in the evolving complementary mix of public services and third sector tenants in Maylords. And this was done during the development of the detailed business case, which was published, consulted upon and approved a year ago in June 2022. Similarly,
Councillor Harvey, I think your microphone's just timed up.
Similarly, there's no surprising new city centre sites capable of delivering the necessary £3.5 million worth of match funding for this project, which have suddenly appeared in the city following the development of the draft City Master Plan. This is also the case for the options considered and approved by government in the Town Investment Plan. It is simply not credible to use these two plans as pegs to hang the proposal to pause and review this project upon. Relocating retail space in the city is essential to undo the great damage that we all know has been done to the city's retail core by previous Conservative administrations. Ironically, changing plans for a cultural hub on the old livestock market site and flipping it to become competitive retail to the city centre. The wrong-headedness of that decision is now apparent in the demise of Debenhams as an anchor tenant and the failure of British Land to maintain that unit in retail use. It is not appropriate for the Conservatives now to suggest we should be competing with private business by proposing to consider retaining the library space as retail space in justification of this as a review. The risk of legal action from businesses already under contract must be high, and we are worried at the sweeping nature of the delegation being sought under Recommendation C. Similarly, it's worrying that if the review is so necessary, Councillor Bramer has not troubled himself to identify and share the guiding principles under which the review is to be taken, not even with his cabinet colleagues. The absence of this information in the decision report before us today and the requirement for a recommendation to deal with it after the fact is another reason why Cabinet is not in possession of information necessary to make a sound decision today. Reputational damage to the council and possibly to the many officers and other professionals who've been involved in developing this project is already happening as a result of Cabinet even choosing to suggest this is a review. There have been multiple opportunities for the Conservative group and its supporters to raise concerns about Maylords as a location at every point in the development of this project, or whilst it was consulted upon. Contracts have now been let and successful companies announced. The entirety of the council's financial contribution to the project has already been spent. There are tight deadlines within which Stronger Towns projects must be delivered, and the council is also the accountable body for the overall project. And this decision report comes to Cabinet with no opinion provided in terms of the accountable body responsibilities regarding the financial and delivery risk to the overall project, or to this project specifically by undertaking such a pause and review. Has the Section 151 officer been asked to offer an opinion for Cabinet, and if not, why not? We believe we see a glimpse of the real ambition for this county's library service in the opinions of Sir Bill Wiggin, published today in the Hereford Times, where he says he welcomes Cabinet taking the decision to cancel the move of Hereford's library to Maylord Shopping Centre, He suggests that Maylords is a financial black hole, and he welcomes any move, he says, to cut losses on this expensive vanity project. I hear what the Cabinet member says, that Conservatives support cultural projects, but how can we have any confidence in what he says when our MP so clearly has contempt for the library service and for this project? Independents for Herefordshire urge the Cabinet to pull back from proceeding with this review. Please don't vote to proceed and go ahead. Let the project proceed as planned and as supported overwhelmingly throughout the entire 3-year development of the Stronger Towns project. Please get behind this fantastically supportive, positive investment in a 21st century library and learning resource centre for the city, and to act as a hub for the entire library network of the county.
Thank you for that contribution, Councillor Harvey. Are there any more group leaders that wish to speak? Councillor James.
There was a question embedded in there.
Sorry. Councillor Bramer, did you?
The question was regarding the 151 officer, and that's the only question that I noticed, is whether the 151 officer has been made aware.
Well, I'm asking you, Councillor Bramer, has the Section 151 officer been asked to form an opinion for Cabinet in respect of the accountable body responsibilities that we hold, and if not, why not?
It will form part of the review, as you would expect.
It is important in the context of taking this decision here to undertake the review. Do I take that as a no and a refusal to answer why not?
Councillor Bramer, just want to clarify.
I'm sorry, but we are here today to pause and review is what we're looking to do, and that pause and review will answer all of the questions that you're, all of the comments that you're making. I'm afraid I don't think there's anything further. I'm sitting next to the 151 officer. He may care to make a comment, but I certainly find that everything that you've mentioned are mainly grandstanding, but when they're not grandstanding, they're comments which I think are fairly obvious to most of the people in this committee.
Okay, I think what's obvious is that you don't actually understand that this is about the implication of even undertaking the decision to hold the review. And it's you, Councillor Bramer, who don't understand the implications of the decision you're a Cabinet member responsible for, if you're saying that that is not relevant to the debate we're holding here now.
Okay, thank you for that comment, Councillor Harvey. Councillor James.
Thank you, Leader. I have concerns about this as to where we will eventually end up. I'm concerned that we will end up with something less than what is being proposed at Maylords. If it is not at least as impressive outcome, or better than is proposed at Maylords also, then I'd be totally opposed to this. But this is a review. But what I wanted was to know, what is the financial implication of, I'm not saying of cancelling, but of the pause? What are the pause? I mean, I'm concerned about the delegated corporate director in C, Environment, with his authority to cancel all current contractor related works with the where necessary to secure recommendation A. Now, I don't see quite enough clear indication as to what financial implications could be in this, in the pausing of it, and the risk that is taken that we lose funding and we lose, we have at this particular point in time high inflation. The longer we wait, the more it will cost. We're approaching 10, well, in building works, I'm afraid it is higher than 10% has been the last 12 months. If we say £1 million, it'll be £1,100,000 next year. I'm also concerned saddened by the fact that people get very worked up about this, but weren't just worked up about what's been going on in children's services over the last so many years, and getting very emotional about this. and this pales into insignificance compared to that.
Thank you for that sobering point, Councillor James. Councillor Stoddart.
Thank you, Leader. To address Councillor James's points, we can confirm that the funding plan can be done within the timescale, but the pause is not going to affect that at all.
Okay, are there any more comments from all group leaders have spoken who want to? Right, Councillor Jones, you've already spoken. Is it a matter of clarification?
It is a matter of clarification. I'd like to ask Councillor Bramer for clarification that he recognises that paragraphs 22 and 23 of his own report outline that the financial implications of just the decision to pause and review are potentially £1,289,000. Just the financial implications of the decision to pause and review. £1.3 million is the financial implication of this decision.
The figure quoted by the member is dependent on the outcome of the review. There are other implications that could be similar to, less than, or more than, depending on the outcome of the review. I don't quite understand what the question was.
It was just highlighting you to the costs that are in the report. Okay then, if there are no further comments, the recommendations...
Can Councillor Bramer...
No,
sorry, Councillor Lester.
That's all right. Please.
It's a really important clarification.
Councillor Jones, thank you. It was a good point, well made. Thank you. The recommendations are set out in the report. Cabinet members, are you all in favour? Thank you. Thank you very much. And we move swiftly on to the item 7, the last item on the agenda, which is the Q4 budget and performance reports. To review the performance report of the Q4 of 2020-2023, the report and report on the provisional financial outturn for the review, for revenue and for capital budgets for the year ending in March the 31st, 2023, subject to the internal audit, of course. Also to provide an assurance that the progress has been made towards delivery of the agreed revenue budget and the service delivery targets, and that the reasons for the major variances or potential underperformance are understood and are being addressed to the Cabinet's satisfaction. These items begin on page 47 of the agenda pack, and I go to Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Services, Councillor Stoddart.
Thank you, Leader. The final year-end position for financial year 22-23 was an overspend of £5.6 million, which represents 3.2% of the net budget. This overspend has been funded from the Financial Resilience Reserve, and this is broadly consistent with the plan presented to Council as part of the budget in February 2023. The timely reporting of the outturn position has enabled the Council to prepare and publish its annual accounts within the statutory deadline, and these will now be subject to audit to receive external assurance. A number of pressures faced by the Council have been experienced nationally in 2022-2023, notably inflation and cost of living. The Council, however, has managed these pressures, delivering an underspend in many directorates. In particular, the Council has faced significant pressures in the Children and Young Persons Directorate as a result of inflation and rising demand for placements and transport services. £10.2 million of the £11.5 million Children's Improvement Plan funding was spent in year 22-23, and the remaining £1.3 million has been carried forward to continue to support the transformation and improvement in 2023-2024. I'd now like to open up to my Cabinet colleagues for questions and comments.
Councillor Gandy.
Thank you. And I make no apology for my response to be perhaps longer than others, but I believe that my directorate has a lot to be very proud of, and I wish to make that clear. With regards to the revenue outturn, the health and adult wellbeing portfolio carried delivered an underspend of 1.3 million. The underspend was largely within the client budgets and mainly due to, sadly, people passing away and therefore packages of care coming to an end in year. There was £600,000 underspend across the budget for memory and cognition domiciliary care, also due to the above. As you can imagine, these budgets are difficult to forecast accurately, and we do have a slightly greater number of deaths in December and January than in previous years. In learning disabilities, there was an £800,000 underspend, mainly due to the drawdown of £500,000 from reserves, which was the early delivery of savings generated in 21-22. The council took the decision to draw down this reserve in November, as they were looking at a likely end-of-year overspend. In the event, due to the number of deaths in other areas, the overspend did not materialise. There were underspends in residential care and other areas, and in the direct payments in this area. In terms of staff, there was a £100,000 overspend, which is a combination of the pay award above budget and the cost of agency and interim staff. So in summary, there was a £1.4 million underspend in client budgets, which was offset by a £100,000 overspend in staffing budgets. In the capital budget, community wellbeing has delivered 100% of their £0.7 million saving. In performance, the Directorate performed well against the measures in the delivery plan, with two exceptions, which reflect the increasing needs of people coming out of hospital. With regards to the indicator of admissions to care homes of clients under the age of 65, we achieved 19.07% per 100,000 population, and our target was 15. Whilst the outcome was above target, it was significantly below the outturn of 21-22, which was 26.6 per 100,000. As with older people, it reflected an increase in those with more complex needs who need specialist support from a care home because they're unable to live independently in their own home. I believe the Directorate has demonstrated that it has done well during the past financial year, and I must thank the Director Hilary and her staff for these achievements, but also Councillor Pauline Crottick, my predecessor. In the capital programme outturn, there's an item under the Care Home and Extra Care Development Project. £14 million was provisionally allocated in the capital programme for the new facilities to be funded primarily from prudential borrowing, with payback coming through the income generated from the facility. As it states, no suitable site has been found, and the previous administration agreed not to progress the project in its current state. Whilst older people account for the largest proportion of residents when the council is providing care, the length of time that they are open to the service is relatively short, and the vast majority are self-funders. Working age adults with learning disabilities, autism and challenging behaviour issues account for a significant percentage of the council's adult social care budget, and the vast majority will remain with the service throughout their adult life. There is currently no bed-based provision within the county for adults with complex needs, and so they are often placed out of county, often at a high cost and away from family and friends. There are therefore opportunities to explore where council investment would secure most value in the market, whilst ensuring all those who require care and support get the best service. Therefore, by the 31st of July 2023, a review of the options set out in the original paper of October 21 and the underlying assumptions, particularly in the light of COVID and current market conditions. By August 2023, an option paper will be submitted to the Cabinet member for consideration, including discussion with Cabinet. And by the end of the year, the Cabinet paper will be produced, setting out the way forward with key timelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gandy. Thank you very much for that. Any other Cabinet members wish to focus on the areas? I think it was Councillor Price first and then Councillor Biggs.
I've got a question.
Thank you, Leader. I had two questions on this. I wasn't expecting to have to ask any questions on it because it should be straightforward. The first question, I've had a satisfactory response beforehand, which is about Peter Church School, which seems to have been lingering in the system for a very long period of time. But I've had a briefing with officers recently, which has put my mind at rest, even though the procurement has somewhat changed from the original ideas. But my point at the present moment is in listening to the debate about the review of the library, just sort of suggests, I don't want to get political about this, but I will, because the bypass and the South Wye Link Road was such a major decision by the previous administration to council, which cost us millions of pounds, which clearly, when you make a decision, do you realise the consequences? I live to the west of Hereford, and I have had to point out to officers several times in the last couple of 3 weeks just how bad the infrastructure is to the west of Hereford, especially around bridge crossings of the River Wye. Now, the decision to cancel that system that we spent years preparing, years consulting on, to hear the debates about the simple review of the library pales into inconsequence in relation. Now, I've asked Councillor Stoddart if he wouldn't mind just investigating, as it's been brought to my attention, that some of the land that was acquired by compulsory purchase order on the South Wye Link Road has fairly recently, in this year that we're talking about for capital, has been sold back to the owners. I am absolutely gobsmacked by the state of this decision, how it ever arose and how anybody allowed it to happen when you're close to an election, that it was quite obvious that we were going to come back and look for some form of infrastructure to sort the roads out around the county. So, Councillor Stoddart, I gave you warning of what I was going to ask you. Can you confirm if the council sold any of the land that it had acquired as part of the land acquisition arrangement for the South Wye Link Road?
Councillor Stoddart.
Thank you, Councillor Price. I can confirm that for one piece of land, the former owner exercised their right under the compulsory purchase arrangements to reacquire the land. They did this paying the same amount that we paid for the land, and this was completed in Q3 of 2022-2023, and the receipt was placed in the Capital Receipts Reserve.
I thank you very much for that response, and I'm sure I will hold that dear to my heart for the rest of my life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Biggs.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got one piece of good news, if I could, and that's on within my March's business improvement programme and exceeding its targets. It's coming to the end now, but I'll just give you a shout for them really. The target of number of businesses supported is 48. We managed 55. Jobs created target of 55. We managed 103 and a half. I don't know how we got a half a job, but there we are. New products and services, 11 was a target, made 23. And although the number of buildings supported were less, the footage was much higher, the meterage was much higher. So really significant piece of work by that team. So I just want to raise that to you to praise them if I could. And then just one question for Councillor Stoddart. I'm just wondering if you have any plans to review the capital programme. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Briggs, for that question. I can confirm, yes, it's very much in my intention to review in the next few weeks the capital programme.
Okay, any more comments from Cabinet about the quarter performance? Yeah, Councillor Swindlehurst.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'm just going to speak briefly to the environment portfolio, which was an environment economy, so it's kind of slightly separated out for me. Now, the 26 projects, 20 are on track, 5 at risk, 1 compromise. Overall, I think performance has been very good. I congratulate the previous Cabinet member for her work here. The overall improvement of 91% measures met or exceeded, which is very good, very solid performance there. For a brief update, Luston, the wetland at Luston is now fully commissioned. There's water flowing in, and there are credits being traded to bring some relief to the house builders in the local catchment who haven't been able to do their work. So that's a bit of extra good news. I would like to also say that the issue over housing is something I will take up with the leader and continue to find whatever means we can that will work to alleviate that problem and see house building restored to the Lug catchment. The report also had, at the time of the report, 25 businesses signed up to 30 for 2030. These are businesses signed up to net zero. I went to a meeting the other day. We're now at 30, which is brilliant. The last one being Hereford FC, and what's more, we've got businesses on the subs bench as well. So that's really that's caught you know, it's great to see businesses come forward really wanting to play a positive role. And again, congratulate Councillor Chowles on the progress that she's made with that. The only thing that I see as work still to do is the delivery of works under the Home Upgrade Grant, Warm Homes Fund and Green Homes Grant, which we seem to be sort of struggling to deliver that as we would like to. So that's something that I will take forward and wish to see improved performance in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swinglehurst. Right, this quarter report has not gone to scrutiny, so we'll open the floor to group leaders. Any group leaders wish to comment? I know Councillor Harvey does. Then Councillor Chowles as well. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Leader. A net overspend of 5.6 million for 22-23 might at first glance seem to be a poor result, but given that the Children's Directorate forecast an immediate £6 million overspend in Q1 last year and ended up overspending by more than 9.6 million at year end, this result represents a huge effort on the part of all areas of the Council to mitigate that unplanned spending in year, when the budget made provision for only 2% inflation rather than the 14% visited upon us all in year by the consecutive cabinets of chaos down in Westminster. Given that as a backdrop, 66% of performance measures held firm or improving, and 75% delivery plan actions complete or on target at the three-quarter way point in delivery of the current county plan is a solid achievement. Independents for Herefordshire would like to take the opportunity to thank our staff, and especially the Chief Executive and the leadership team, for their hard work and commitment to the broad objectives of the Council during this very difficult year, when major problems in children's services threaten to overshadow the work of the entire Council. The Independent Group would like to give a special mention to the important contribution that everyone in the Health and Adult Wellbeing Directorate made in delivering 1.3 million in-year underspend in a service area where the pressures are only ever increasing. It is a testament to the teamwork of this directorate in managing to deliver care in new and innovative ways, and the importance of the work that has been done to invest consistently over the last 4 years in building community capability through the Talk Community Initiative. We particularly want to pay tribute to the staff in this directorate who have been supporting households in hardship through the management of the support funds that we made available to go beyond what was provided by government in targeting support to the least well off in our county. We also commend the Finance and Revenue and Benefits teams and the Economic Development team for their work in distributing fuel payments and other forms of grant support, and the Environment team for helping households access funding to future-proof their homes and reduce their energy bills, amongst many other things. The Economic Development team has also managed to secure many millions in grant funding over the last 12 months, and that's a huge achievement in these economic climates. The high level of spending in Children's Directorate is, however, unsustainable, and we hope that the additional resources that have already been directed to better record keeping will continue to improve the management and realistic forecasting of service costs in the year to come. It is neither fair nor sustainable for all other service areas of this council to notch their belts still tighter to offset persistent cost overruns in this directorate. The improvement plan must be held to delivering outcome improvements and their associated service delivery efficiencies in the year to come and beyond. Other councils have shown that it's possible to transform their children's services, and we can do it too. Strategising the management of the council's asset portfolio to support service delivery, deliver social value, or deliver commercial levels of income to support service and social value objectives is crucial to maximising the value delivered to the people of Herefordshire. And that's value in all senses of the world, not just pound notes. And we hope that Councillor Bramer will continue our commitment to the principles of delivering social value through enlightened contract and property management, and we offer him our full support in developing his understanding of these principles. We inherited a neglected and poorly managed property portfolio in 2019, as evidenced by the maintenance backlog for our schools and the shameful state of disrepair which the Conservatives allowed the town and shire halls to fall into. Previous investments in the Three Arms trading estate and the College Road campus had no business plans, and tenants with full repairing leases were not being held to their responsibilities to look after their buildings in exchange for advantageous low rents. The moratorium on development in the river catchments continues to limit income generated from planning services, and the changes post-COVID to people's working habits continue to impact on car parking income. Although our commitment to investments in culture and tourism and in the visitor economy have continued to deliver real economic benefit on the ground, outside of and beyond the benefits represented in these accounts by efficient use and speedy distribution of COVID and other grants, amongst other things. Those of us literate in council finances understand that the more than £5 million net income from car parking charges goes to support transport, road maintenance and public realm works, now starved of funding by the ongoing policy of defunding local government. It is difficult to see how the bold promises made during the election campaign to reduce car parking charges can be squared with the equally bold promises to increase spending on road maintenance. And the Independents for Herefordshire look forward to hearing more about how this present administration intends to square that circle. Finally, the continued prudent and professional approach to Treasury management has delivered a significant contribution to the underspend in this area of the Council's operation, which is to be applauded. However, we caution this current administration now not to go slow on the ambitious capital programme it has been fortunate to inherit, and to continue to invest in professional project management if it is to avoid returning to its own bad habits of overspend and cover up pre-2019.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Childs.
Thank you, Leader. On behalf of the Green Group, I would first of all like to thank all of the staff who've worked incredibly hard, actually under very difficult financial circumstances, given, you know, inflation and everything that's happened over the last year, to deliver services in the context of an increasingly tight budget. And while I recognise that, as we can see from the papers, we have unfortunately an overspend in the area of children's services, I think we all share the determination to ensure that we do what has to be done to turn around children's services. And I'd like to recognise that in other areas of the council's work, staff have succeeded in delivering financial savings while continuing to deliver services effectively. I'd like to thank Councillor Swinglehurst for her kind words, and I think you know, she's providing a model actually of what how transition should happen from one administration to the other in an area of great strategic importance for not just the council but the county and indeed the country as a whole. I hope and believe that she will continue the tradition of evidence-based policy making that I started. I can see you nodding, Alyssa, that's great. And the same also to Councillor Biggs, who has the great good fortune of taking over the economy portfolio, which I also worked on. And I'm sure they have both found that the Ofsted teams in both of those areas are an absolute pleasure to work with, both hardworking and very effective. Alyssa, I'd also like to congratulate you on your very good use of football analogies. So if I can just extend that, I'd like to, I suppose we could say that although you and I are on different coloured political teams, I hope that we focus on largely the same goals. I look forward to working very cooperatively with you going forward to drive that forward. Congratulations on the continued expansion of the 30 for 2030 network, and indeed there are many other projects under the broad umbrella of the Climate and Nature Reserve that we kicked off, and I really look forward to seeing them grow and thrive under your tender loving care going forward. The thing I did particularly want to pick up on, as you've pointed out, performance has been excellent in the environment area, and indeed very good in the economy area too. But the one aspect that is flagged red in the papers that are before us is the issue of energy efficiency works in council buildings. That's in part related to grant funding and so forth, but this is a perennial issue that we have struggled with, and it is absolutely vital that we put our own house in order, our own building in order, literally, in order to play our role in leadership in terms of tackling the climate and nature emergencies. So Councillor Swinglehurst, can you assure me that you will focus on that, especially in order to work with colleagues, indeed in other directorates not directly under your control, to make sure that we ensure that that is amber next time at least, if not green. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your comments, Councillor Chowns, and I can give that assurance, as well as actually I'm very committed to wanting to find every tool that we've got to get retrofit moving ahead in the county, get the skill set sorted, because it's absolutely critical. We will not get where we need to go if we can't get retrofitting and property insulation delivered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other group leaders who wish to speak? Oh, Councillor James and then Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Leader. Just to say, my real concern is what's going to happen in the next year. I mean, it is what it is, the overspend. The children's service deficit is not going to go away, but I think the pressure, or the increased pressure financially, is going to come in adult services, because there's enormous pressure, cost pressure in those particular services. It's very difficult for those people that are managing care services to employ people on current rates. They're having to give way above inflation level increase in salaries and payments. And we're getting an increasing number of people who require that sort of support. And I am worried that next year we'll be seeing, well, not quite the replacement of those two deficits, but shortfalls, but we'll see an increase in the adult services deficit going up and up and up over coming years, because of that very problem of the increasing ageing of the population, but also the increasing cost of providing the services which statutorily we have to.
Thank you, and I'm sure that Councillor Gandhi and our Director are fully aware of the pressures and the issues that they'll be facing in the coming months. Right, and the last word to Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Leader. Two brief questions. On page 91, bullet point 3, debt write-offs, £20,410 commercial rental account. Property Services confirmed debt could not be chased due to a clause within the lease. Could I ask Councillor Stobart or Mr. Lovegrove, has that issue now been addressed to make sure that doesn't arise again and we get our money back?
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. Thank you for your question. Those debt write-offs relate to a number of issues from some of the periods around 2013. It relates sometimes to adult care, so it's the sale of a house of an individual, and hence some of the problems. What I can say is that as a good professional organisation, we have a continuous improvement process, and speaking with the 151 officer on my left, he's confirmed to me that we have learned from that, and those leases and agreements have been improved in the future.
Thank you very much, Captain. One other brief question, Leader, if I may, on page 53, cycling facilities. The project will see new Department of Transport revised design guide, compliant cycle schemes, Elston Hill, Blue Schoolhouse, Commercial Road, Great Western Way, Home Lacey Road, and surrounding streets. That's all fine. But when is this administration going to have a reasonable and sensible cycleway to serve our largest developer in Credhill? I've managed to get a cycleway in from Kingsacre up to Credhill, but Kingsacre Road one, which is an extremely busy road. Councillor Price, could you tell me that, or promise me that you'll look at that, that they're our largest developer, employer by far more than what's at Rotherhurst, because 3,600 civilian jobs there, and we haven't even got a decent cycleway up there. Could you promise me or assure me you'll look at it and try and address that issue?
Councillor Matthews, over the next few months, we are looking at all the cycle walking arrangements around the city and further out. We've actually had a bit of a discussion about the local transport plan this very morning, and my view is that we've got to look after the 2/3 of the population outside of Hereford as well as those that are in and around Hereford. Unfortunately, the funding comes to Hereford and close confines. You are lucky that you do already have cycleways from Credhill towards town, which a lot of people don't have. So, but we will look at it, and I will. I know your position has been like this for many years, and I will take notice of it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments, and thank you, Councillor Price. But the recommendation is as follows: that the Cabinet, having reviewed the performance and financial outturn for the years 2022-23 as set out in appendices A to F, have not identified any additional actions to be considered to achieve future improvements. So do I have Cabinet's approval that we're all in favour? Right. Okay then, I would like to thank everyone for your attendance. The next meeting is scheduled for 10 AM on Thursday, the 20th of July. I will now formally close the meeting, and all members of the public are requested to leave the building promptly. Please ensure that you've taken all of your possessions with you, and your visit pass is returned as you leave. Please can I ask that the live stream be stopped? Thank you very much.